What's up? There we are. Joy Carcino here, and let's talk about it. People keep asking me, is this a hoax? Or is it history? What can be gained from it? What do they want? Pandemics. DJ pandemics. So you got to realize a couple of things here, good people. Whenever there's a situation where there's fear, there's always going to be looked at as opportunity. Pandemics have always been the face of this country. You got to understand with like infectious diseases and all of these things from hundreds of years ago, all different type of influenzas and flus and smallpox going back 430 BC. You can go back 10,000 years. These things was always used as weapons to maneuver government decisions or political decisions. They had a disease that passed through Ethiopia and Egypt during the time when they had the Athenian walls, when the Spartans was all out there, where 2/3 of the population just died. You would get a bloody throat, tongue red, your skin's red, crazy fever, lesions appearing all over your body, and you would just die from a thyroid fever. Then they had the smallpox plague that came after the fact. Well, of course it did, because it was very rampant during that time. Because this was happening before Christ was even born and after his death. The Germans got smallpox and gave it to the Romans, who then the troops spreaded it throughout the Roman Empire, which, smallpox end up leading to diarrhea, fever, sore throat, pus-filled sores all over their bodies. Even the Roman emperor himself, Marcus Aurelius, was one of the victims of smallpox. This is history, ladies and gentlemen. Or is it a hoax? Well, the Christian Bishop Church knew that had a position where they didn't want to relinquish. And this plague just came in. It's another type of smallpox. They just gave it a new name. It came out of nowhere, just wiped out people in Ethiopia, northern Africa, went into Rome and Egypt. Mostly city dwellers fled the country to escape the infection, but it spread it, and the disease ended up getting everybody sick. And was it 44 AD? It was just destroying people. It lasted for hundreds of years because of reoccurring outbreaks. Heard about the dengue fever? The dengue fever. Is that a Danish one? It's not a Palestine fever, is it? It's not that plague, is it? That took out the Byzantine Empire. Is that what you talking about? Which is another bubonic plague that killed about 50 million people, which was carried by rats and fleas. Well, it's been around ages, but the leprosy grew into a pandemic in Europe in the 11th century. That's when they had the bacterial disease and disformities and all of those things that was happening with the leprosy. Oh no, that's a recent one. No, I probably haven't heard of it. Probably haven't. Most of the recent ones that escapes me. I'm more familiar with the history, like the Black Death of the 1400, that era, the rat disease that tore up Italy. It started in China and moved west and came into Italy and just dead bodies was everywhere, and they called it the Black Death. And it started tearing up places like Greenland. Yeah, it's plague hit. It forced them to have to call a truce to their war. It was the plague ended the war. They named it the Black Death and wiped out 1/3 of the world's population. How's it going? I see you there. For me, it's been all right. I can't complain. I've been better. Now I guess I gotta order out everything now. Hold on. Oh, that's just people freaking out over the Tahiri pictures on the Patreon. Yeah, we got some like nude pictures of Tahiri. So they like living that up. Now back to this lesson here. Was that strategic that the Black Death come in and sacrificed a whole lot of people? 1/3 of the world's population was wiped out. I don't think it started that way. But once they started to come up with a defense for it, now it's time to weaponize. At the end of the war, you have less people, resources are not fighting it, right? Oh, remember 1492, the Caribbean bubonic plague with the measles and smallpox. See, when the Spanish people came to the Caribbeans, they brought a disease in 1492 that came mostly from Europe and started to affect the indigenous people over there, with as many as 90% dying throughout the north and southern continents. Don't think that's a weapon? That's what they did. The Spanish came over there and brought this disease with them, measles, smallpox. What they were doing was colonizing. by using it as a weapon. Christopher Columbus did the same thing when he came to the Americans and did that to the Aztec Empire over in Mexico in 1520, because it wasn't called Mexico back then, but it is now. So the Aztec Empire fell due to the smallpox infection, and they said it was brought by the African slaves. No, it was brought by the Spanish. And you probably say, well, why did they do this? Well, you're colonizing, but what were they colonizing? What were they doing? What they were doing was setting them up for something that they can never walk away from ever in life. And what they were doing was going around doing it to every country they could find and turning them all into one religion, one belief, turning them all Catholic. When you colonize and take over an area, what do? You take over their resources, destroy anything they believed in, and give them something new. This has happened in Egypt. Anyone caught worshiping their old ways are jailed, hung, or what have you. Most of these diseases were from Europe. In 1665, the Plague of London, where the cats and dogs were slaughtered and the disease spread through the ports of Thames. The worst outbreak happened in the fall of 1666, the year of 1666. Then became the Great Fire of London, as London was plagued and fired and burnt to ashes, basically, in 666. Then in 1817, that's what started the big flu and everything. And by 1820, everything was going down to hell, wasn't it? They had 7 different pandemics over the next 150 years. Cholera, what was that? Cholera? Man, that thing kept coming and coming back and going away and coming back. It created a vaccine, but it came back just like this will. When they give you the vaccine to this, it's got something else is gonna come. It's gonna go away for a little bit and it's gonna come back. Corona will be back with Modelo. They coming back with a whole new 12 pack. See, with cholera rather, that's when you get the feces, infected water, and food. They had all that bacteria passing around, and you had British soldiers there. Millions of people died. And they went all the way to the British Empire, the Navy, Spain, Africa, China, Japan, Germany, and even America. Over 200,000 people were killed. Oh, it even got to Hong Kong and India. they got it worse because it mutated into, once they thought they had it like under control, they didn't. And it just kept tearing them down. And it was just taking people out. It took out the rebellion and started taking out mostly military in China and moving to India and Hong Kong because people try to flee and most of them are sick and not well and they still flee anyway. Then they had the big measles outbreak. The British Empire came in there once the royal party visited Australia as a gift from Queen Victoria. Arrived during a measles outbreak. The royal party was brought in to the diseased island. They went to Fiji and brought it back, and it wiped all them out, 40,000 people, sick, trapped, and dying, which led to the Russian flu in Siberia and Kazakhstan. They got wiped out in the 1890s. Then that mutated into what they call the avian-borne flu, better known as the Spanish flu, in 1920. So in 1920, here come old Spanish flu. And Spanish flu appeared in Kansas, started wiping people out, and it was like off to the races. That lasted for years. Years. We're hoping and praying this is over in months. This is back when disease used to last years. They disappear and they come back. And they always seem to come when the country is at its worst, where population is very high, war and fathom is very high, poverty is very high, not a lot of jobs, economic system is bad. What do? You light a match, and you burn it all down. And when you burn down all the structure, you try to rebuild it quick as you can, and then start all over. Have anybody noticed the country's in debt by trillions, right? But wow, we got a quick $1 trillion budget to help bail out the country for people who's not working during this crisis. Where did that money come from? Nobody thought about that, have they? Where did the money come from? Got to start thinking, people. Got to start thinking. I know they're keeping you distracted with everything, with the Netflix and the video games and everything, but you got to stop and think every now and then. 1957, the Asian flu came. When the Asian flu started, that's when it came back with a whole new thing. The Spanish flu became the Asian flu. In China, they had for 6 months, 14,000 people died. They came up with a vaccine. Then another wave came, causing about 1.1 million people to die around the world from it. So they contained another vaccine, which was able to contain it, which means it don't go away, it's just contained more. Then in 1980s, introduction of AIDS. AIDS came along, wiping into American gay communities, the San Francisco bathhouses, and there's been no cure in sight yet. Then we have the H1N1. SARS, all these little outbreaks of colds and flus that we seem to have gotten a control of because nothing's really alien anymore. With today's modern medicine and technology, they pretty much have a lot of these viruses contained. In the movie Outbreak, whether you saw the monkey, that was based on a true story that actually happened. Where at the time, if that monkey would have escaped and they didn't have that monkey, that they would have had no way of containing that virus. They needed to get it from the actual source of where that monkey came from. Why that monkey was so contaminated, no one else even knew to this day why that monkey was that contaminated and had so much deadly poison into him. This is why rules were in place where you don't take agriculture from one country and bring it to another. Fruit, certain things don't exist in other climates. It's also to contain disease. So, is it hoax or is it history? It's not a hoax. It's definitely history. History has taught us not to believe everything we see at face value. And they're right. Don't believe it. Thank you, LM. I appreciate it. Yes, you can. You can eat rotten fruit, spoils and rottens. And when you get it here, it can mess up the agriculture. Animals too. Why do you think they tell you do not bring bananas? Do not bring fruit. You're not supposed to bring any of those things here into this country. Believe me, it can cause tons of problems for you. Coronavirus normally comes from a bat. So it's a bat mixed with something else, normally a pig or some type of animal. It's not a hoax. The reason why is because it's been out for years. COVID 19. There's actually another strand. It's COVID 20. That's the one you really don't have to worry about. See, they have all of these things in a jar. They tested the viruses and they try to come up with the vaccine. And once they do, now it's time to see if we can weaponize. We're overpopulated. The country's overpopulated. So here we have a virus that attacks the immune system of every human being, but the older you are, the more dangerous it is for you. I didn't hear my cash app go off. My cash app is Carcino, Karceno, or you can hit the super chat button here. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . So that's a history lesson, you know. And as far as the opportunity, all of these things are going to go and get burnt down so that other people can hide certain things. When they do things like this and put the country in such a despair, the world is put in despair. Why would they do that? Because worldwide resources are short. It's more people than less. It's a global problem. So if we corrupt the system, stop the system, shut down the entire system around the world, shut the world down, then we could start anew. Then we'll say, you know, let's come up with a new currency. But they already did that. People don't even know they have. You're already living in a new world currency, a new world order. People's like, well, it's a new world order. You've already been living in a new world order. Everything's electronic. Paper money means diddly squat, really. Somebody can have a card and have a digital number in there, and that can determine how much money they have, how much money they don't have in a digital number. Somebody can alter that digital number and make it anything they want, and without even seeing any money or whatever, they got money. You can swipe it anywhere, and it goes on a code, and you can use it universally around the globe just by swiping it. One currency around the world. So the new world order, you've already been living in it. Now, what you gonna do? It's all on you now. I know. Tell me about it.